I think a lot of people, let's take the West Side guys, right? You and there's all these crazy stories.
Mm-hmm.
Louis Simmons had a trach in his neck and was bench pressing. People will hear that stuff, and it's so many levels ahead of them that they can't even comprehend. Like, they hear the story and they say, okay, that's cool, or that's hardcore, but it doesn't register like, maybe I could be that way. And I think I've always been like, well, that's just like, somebody's doing that, so I should be able to get close. Right. Like if I saw a guy standing on a nail, I would think, I can figure out how to do something similar. Maybe not a nail, but like 3 nails.
Yeah.
Like
something a little bit more comfortable.
Like I would think immediately. And I think if you can think that way, because if somebody's done it, somebody else can do it. And maybe you can't do it exactly, but you can get close. Mm-hmm. Right. Like, I don't know that I would max out on bench press after having a hole in my neck the next day, but, I've done similar things. I had a ruptured intestine in 2021, I think. And I was in the hospital. I went in on a Sunday, and I think I got out on Thursday, and I went and hit a bench PR on Friday.
Yeah.
So, but had I not heard stories about like you guys and the crazy stuff you were doing, maybe I may not have thought that was doable.
Or smart.
Yeah, well, it definitely wasn't. It definitely wasn't smart, but that's what I did. I'm not saying to do that, but I mean, if you want to get to a certain level, do it. Yeah. Right. And if I'm doing it, I'm not even on you guys' level.
Well, that's different though, because it's stupidity or whatever it is. It's like training after a surgery or whatever. It's just, that's kind of easy. You just train.
Do it.
Yeah.
That's different than if you have to strain through a max deadlift, or you're trying to bend some shit that's going to take you 3 minutes to bend. That's a different.
But I think the way they look at it's similar. Like if it's so high, like standing on a single nail, that's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Right. If you were standing on a bed of nails, like, you would probably think, okay, right. You see the different, like, because the surface area is wider, you could piece together
the risk.
Yeah. But a single nail, that is so many levels above anything so it almost becomes like your brain doesn't even connect with it. But if you can get yourself to connect with it, you open up all these other possibilities and all these other things.
No, I get that, because it's a long time ago. I'm trying to go to my forever ago. It might have been forever ago or a long time ago, one of those two. I went to a Tony Robbins thing.
Okay, yeah.
And they had this whole walk on coal shit or walk on fire at the end of the thing. And it was... How do I explain this? All right. So he starts like mentally prepping everybody up literally 3 hours before this fucking thing. Right. And this is the last thing that you're doing. So you're there all fucking day. Right. So it's late. And I'm getting frustrated after like an hour. I'm fucking tired.
You just want to walk on the bed.
Fucking walk on the shit so I can go home, go to sleep. And this just keeps going on. Then you're all the way up here. You're all fired up and jazzed up. Why, I don't know. Like a football team would be before they bust out for the game. Now you're back on the floor meditating, visualizing. I'm like, Jesus Christ. So I looked at the guy next to me. I'm like, look, man, I'm not a puss, but I'm about ready to bolt the hell out of here. I'm not scared to do this, but I have no idea how long this shit's going to go on. It's been like 2 hours already. And he said something I still remember today. He says, Dave, what you don't realize is most of the people here, they've never played any sports before. They never had to get themselves psyched up for anything at all. In the meantime, I'm just like, all I need is like a fucking hit of ammonia and boom, let's go. Right. And then everybody obviously goes out and walks through the thing. I don't feel a goddamn thing. I don't even know if it was real. You know what I'm saying? Because it just felt like sand, whatever it was. It's not a big deal. But that's kind of what you're talking about. Like, I could have done this shit with that. Let's go. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But everybody else probably needed all that, to be able to know how. Now, why you would get psyched up, come back down, get psyched up like 3 times, I have no fucking idea. But it's to your point, though.
So you're saying maybe you should have been selling amonia salts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there you go. But to the best of my knowledge, everybody did it, and there were thousands of people there, or whoever was there. So
that was something you were going to do recently, no?
What is
walking on a bed of coals?
we have we walk on glass.
Okay.
I do want to do the coals thing. We just haven't taken the time to set that
Now,
up
the
yet.
glass, I'd probably need the ammonia.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Maybe a double hit.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yes. Or tacks or or Legos.
Yeah. Oh,
Legos, man, that would be brutal.
maybe worse than glass.
I've done tacks and glass, but that's one of those things. You know, I don't even remember how what sparked the idea, but it was mentioned somewhere, and I just immediately thought, well, I've seen several people walk on glass, like on Instagram and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I can do that.
That's sweet.
And like, you know, I started Googling stuff and seeing, you know, if there was any tricks to it or whatever, and it was pretty cut and dry. And I was like, okay, so I started getting some glass together, and me and Hannah both walked on glass. I think I carried her across the glass, and that's going to become a part of our a big part of our show. I think we'll be using the glass.
Because I know some trickery, like they'll tumble the glass so it becomes softer and not as sharp. But I'm guessing seeing the guys that actually break the glass in front of you and then walk on it, that's a lot more impressive.
Yeah,
I'm guessing you're doing the latter one.
Yeah, we don't mess with ours.
Like,
It's broken, and yeah, we don't do anything to it.
So how do you add in all that? Let's say, so you have especially you have a very long vision of your training, like a 4-year plan. And then you decide to do something crazy, or like this Guinness record comes up, or the America's Got Talent. How do you factor that into your training? Do you take stuff out? Do you add it in?
Yes.
What do you tell your training partner? Do you rope him into it?
Hey, by the way,
Yeah, this is what we're doing this week now.
So it kind of depends what it is, but like I said, so there's the core stuff. Like right now, it's arm wrestling practice, bench day, and squats. Anything after the bench press and the squats is negotiable. So if I had
Bed of coals.
and then that's not muscular,
Okay.
right? It's not, you know, it's not strength training, so I can throw that in anywhere.
Okay.
But now if I was going to carry a 700-pound yoke across, then I don't know that I would do that. If I was going to carry like a 700-pound yoke across glass, well, then that would be strength training. So I would have to figure out where to put that in. That may have to get its own day. But then if I gave it its own day, I'm going to have to probably move something or drop something. So I may have to skip arm wrestling practice for a few weeks.
So you would move stuff in and out.
Yes. But the core stuff is non-negotiable.
Okay.
It stays for the remainder, and then everything else can be interchanged and moved.
So I'm guessing also inevitably, since you're trying out so many different new things, I assume you'll always have some chance or risk of small injuries, cuts, etc. Is there anything special you do for recovery? How do you treat all that with your regular core training?
Well, so eating and sleeping are number one. I see people like, I sleep 3 hours a day, but I'm doing red light therapy.
Isn't it funny how it comes up every single episode? Eating and sleeping.
yeah.
like my red light therapy. But eating and sleeping's a big one. If I'm getting really beat up, I love float tanks. I think that they're amazing. Like,
Fantastic.
yeah, it's unreal.
Especially for those cuts in your feet. From
Well, you know, then it's just a torture session. But the floats, if you've never done one, the first one isn't great. I don't think. You have to go 2 or 3 times, but after that 3rd time, you'll be like, this is the greatest thing.
Yeah, you have to learn to relax.
Yeah,
You don't
yes,
just
100%.
Yeah.
And you're in a new place, so the first time you go, you have this like extra adrenaline or something, and you're in there like, oh, this is weird. But once you get comfortable in a place, I swear by floats, they're magical.
I fall asleep in them every time.
Oh yeah, I haven't been able to pull that off yet, but I only do an hour. Like they had this deal at the place I was going, and you could do an hour and a half. But like I can only, because I kind of meditate in there. I can't do that for an hour and a half. And then I'm like, why am I in here? So I try to only do 60 minutes.
Okay.
That's like the sweet spot for me. but now if they have like a deal, because sometimes the hour and a half will be cheaper than the 60. So I'll do the hour and a half. I'll just get out early.
Okay, that works.
But then I feel like weird, you know, I paid for this hour and a half.
Yeah.
But I'll get out early. And, but I love those. We just got a, steam sauna, like one of those pop-up steam saunas,
Like a tent.
yeah, and it's got the thing that plugs in it. I use that periodically. I don't do a lot of crazy stuff for recovery other than I eat a lot. I always sleep 8 hours or more, and then float periodically, hit the sauna, and that's about it, really.
Okay.
But I do some body tempering too.
What are the majority of the clients that you work with now? Because I know it's all over the place, from Gym Pop to...
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So I have people that, you know, just are trying not to die of a heart attack,
Yeah.
you know, be fit and whatever. I have a hockey player. I have some martial arts people, competitive strongman. I have, I mean, it's all over the place. I would say the majority of people I have right now are strongmen / arm lifting.
Okay.
Arm lifting's like a grip sport type thing.
How do you make the mental shift if you have a Gym Pop client and the next one that pops up is the professional player? Hey guys, if you're enjoying what you're watching, make sure to take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe.
At Gen Pop, I kind of feel like they can use that mobility enhancement as like a,
Yeah.
hey, I'm getting better. Whereas a powerlifter might be like, well, that didn't help me at all. So why did I bother working? You know what I mean? And then the other thing I would say about a true box squat is the width. A lot of people that squat to a box are using their normal squat width. I believe in really wide feet for the most part. Obviously, if you're conjugate, you could be all over the place. But if I was to say, hey, go do a box squat, I would, in my mind, I'm envisioning the wide stance, butt back, vertical shin, pulling yourself off the box style box squat. And I firmly believe that is the superior style of squatting to a box or box squatting.
I trained Gym Pop clients for over a decade, and all of them I had box squat. And every now and again, I'd put a free squat in there.
Yeah.
But the reason why I fell into it, I guess outside of being a West Side disciple, was I would just watch them stand up from a chair and how awful they're rounding over, they're twisting, or off a couch or whatever. Well, I'm not watching them take a shit, but I assume they're getting off the toilet just as bad, right?
Probably worse, yeah.
So I saw this as more of, teaching them how to stand up, properly.
Yeah.
So they're not wrenching their back every time they get out of bed and X, Y, and Z. Because when I had my hip replaced or any surgery you ever have, the first thing that they teach you is a sit to stand.
One of the most basic movements that you do every day.
You slide to the side of the bed, feet on, and stand up, right? So I've always kind of joked that as long as I keep box squatting, when I'm on my deathbed, I'll be able to slide to the end, put my feet on the floor, and stand up and die on my fucking feet.
Yeah.
So as long as that's so ingrained that it's normal, it falls into that. The other thing I found over time with the Gen Pop, if I put a little band on, even if it was just a broomstick, now they were bracing without knowing they were bracing. And when they went to stand up off the box, they would stand up with compensatory acceleration. Yeah. Because if they started to stand up slow, it goes right back down. So I'm like, well, fuck, this is way easier than trying to teach them how to breathe and brace and all this other shit when they just started. Then eventually that would come off as well. But it always start with a fucking broomstick and high box. And then as you said, you can work them down, from that time period. But that's where my view always stayed with it. Yeah. It's like once they master that, then we can take it away and guess what? They're squatting good.
Yeah. See, I started with the free squat. I thought, oh, I'm going to have them all free squat, but
it's a mess, man.
It is because these, like, a lot of them never played sports or, like I said, they haven't been in it, and they're just so tight in weird ways from sitting at their job, or all these weird things that have happened in the way that they can move now because of the way their life is. And most people can't squat great.
No.
Well, short of a sports squat, most people don't even squat.
Right.
just to sit or stretch or whatever.
And these are the same people that will go out in their backyard and just bend straight over, to do yard work and fuck everything up because they don't know how to sit down.
Yeah.
That hurts me just thinking about it, like hurts my back.
Yeah. Think about it.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's what you see all the time.
Yeah. And I also, a lot of people, especially in the gym pop and strongmen and stuff, will have SI joint issues, pain. And I've discovered that the box squat, I've never had anybody box squatting and have that happen.
Mm-hmm.
But with a regular squat or a deadlift, I get people that come to me not people I train necessarily, but people will come to me all the time and be like, oh, left side of my low back. And I'm like, oh, your SI joint's inflamed or something. What were you doing? It's always a squat or a deadlift. I don't know about a sumo deadlift, but a conventional deadlift and a squat are always the culprits. I've never heard of anybody having that issue unless they were suffering from it at the time and was like, I'm going to go box squat. Well, then of course you're going to have, but going from a healthy SI and box squatting, I've never really heard of that happening. And I've noticed that I think, and this is just theory, I think people that get into lifting are doing normal squats with a relatively narrow stance, and then they're strongmen conventional deadlifting. They're not getting the hip work they think they are. And a lot of times their legs and lower back will get stronger than their hips. And you take it for granted that your hips are going to be strong because from the beginning, your hips are usually the strongest part of your body.
Generally,
but then you start squatting with a relatively narrow stance and conventional deadlifting, and these other things can catch up or surpass. And I honestly believe that's part of what happens with people's SI joint is their back or their hips are fighting each other. But when you start box squatting, it seems to fix that.
Yeah. In the early days, the interesting pushback I would get a lot with the box squats is it will fuck your back up. And it was usually pushback just about West Side in general. So it was kind of like a twofold. So my first reply back would be, well, then it must be the reverse hypers that are keeping our back so fucking strong and healthy. Because the same people say the reverse hypers don't work.
Yeah.
Right. Well, then if the reverse hypers don't work, then the box squat must not be fucking my back up. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. You got it there.
Yeah. So it would kind of circle around. But I think with a lot of these things, and I pointed it out before, if you take a box squat, sometimes that gets pegged. Probably not a good word to use. It gets pegged with
depends what kind of box squat.
With explosive strength development. Like, well, that's really not going to help with the explosive strength development. And let's say maybe that's true, right? Well, there's a lot of other reasons that it could work, right? So a lot of exercises or modalities that somebody will use might get, defined as working for reason X, but it actually works for reason Y, Z, A, B, D, because there's multiple things that are happening in one movement. Maybe it's working because you're reinforcing better squat technique. Maybe it's working because you're hitting the same depth all the time. Maybe it's working because there's more hip activation. You see, it's all these other things, but people like to take that one modality or movement, put it in this one box literally, and say, this is why it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe. But here's all the other, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
A loaded carry would be the same way. Like if you do loaded carries or yokes, you're going to fuck somebody's back all up. Maybe, but there's a lot of other things that are happening because of that.
It does benefit, yeah.
Yeah. The bracing, the conditioning, all the other things that you just you kind of have to do, if you're doing any kind of loaded carry.
Yeah, I mean, you can spend all day arguing why something doesn't work or why it does work, but at the end of the day, if it does work and you're seeing results from it,
who cares why?
Pretty much.
Right.
I mean,
if you figure it out, great. But if not, hey, it works.
Yeah.
And then that's why you have a good coach that knows the why, and then you don't have to argue against it.
Outside of stupid volumes, what are some of the things that you've tried that just were an absolute catastrophe?
Oh, well,
for you,
I think too much volume and too much frequency are the killers. Although you can have a high frequency if you have enough discipline to keep the percentages down, but everybody fails there. They're going to go, because I'm sure you've dealt with this. You give somebody like a dynamic effort day and you're like, well, put 50% of your max on the bar and 25% accommodation. And this is too light, so I put another 45. The point was, it was supposed to be. The point's speed, so you could have a high frequency if you would not throw more plates.
Mm-hmm.
I think volume's the killer. If you do too much volume, you just tank. You have to really know how much volume, and I'm not talking about accessories. I mean, you can run that in the ground. I'm talking the big lifts. It'll just start to eat you up with high volume, especially if you also have a high frequency.
Well, that's an interesting thing because you're working with people on the full spectrum here, right? So the beginners that are just starting, the whole key is to build their volume work capacity. Then on the other end, you're trying to chip things away, to bring it back down.
For sure.
So there's context, that kind of falls within all this. So how do you explain that context to somebody if they're asking?
I think, well, for like a beginner, I think it's important. Let me back that up a little bit. One of the problems that I think people have is they follow the wrong people on all social media platforms because they want to follow their friends. They want to follow the people that they might be competing against, which is fine if you're at a super high level, right? But if you're still at the bottom, stop paying attention to them because they all have bad habits. And you get this thing like, well, I'm a power lifter. There's videos like a power lifter comes in and they're taking a nap between sets. Well, the good ones probably aren't. You know what I mean? You listen to like the guys that come on here and talk with you and especially like dynamic effort. It's like boom, boom, boom between sets. And if you're a beginner, that may hurt your strength to a degree because you're not used to it. But I try to explain it as work capacity. Like, well, okay, sure, you're probably not going to be able to squat as much as you think you can because you're getting run in the ground with these fast-paced sets. But when you get used to it, you're going to explode forward. And that's how I kind of explain it. It's like, it's going to be slow now, but it's going to be worth it later. And, but sometimes that's hard because people see all these other people taking 15 minutes between sets. And I'm like, if you're deadlifting 800 pounds, okay. But if you're deadlifting 135, like maybe we can speed this up a little bit. So I just try to explain it as work capacity. Like if you can build this base, then we can shoot forward much further, much faster later. And in a way, I think it's safer because I think, like we touched on earlier, the amount of weight you're lifting can be more dangerous, especially for weight classed athletes. If you're willing to pack on a bunch of meat armor, but if you're going to stay in a tiny weight class, if you're, 200 pounds deadlifting 700 or 800 pounds and something goes wrong, it's probably going to be catastrophic. You're not going to pull your hamstring, but if you're, Donnie Thompson size in his heyday and you might just pull your hamstring, but the weight can be dangerous. So let's keep weight off the bar as long as we can and build this base. Then we can worry about that.
Then on the other end, it's figuring out what the minimum effective dose is.
Right. Yes. And I'm a big believer, the way that I train, because it helps me with recovery. And I know this probably isn't a popular opinion. I'm not obsessed with how much weight I'm lifting in training because training doesn't matter. I mean, it does, but the competition's what matters. So I have no ego or insecurity in the weight room. I purposefully do things to keep the lifts as light as possible. Like I don't wear a belt most of the time. When we run those squat days far enough and they get really heavy, I'll start putting a belt on, but usually that's an indication like that exercise is getting dropped soon. Because without a belt, I can't lift as much. But I'm still getting stronger. If my max without a belt goes up, I know my belted max went up. So why did I need to put the belt on in training? Right. And that's another mental thing. I think a lot of people, if you don't, and I'm just throwing numbers out there, let's say you can squat 500 without a belt and you can squat 545 with a belt, and then you've peaked. So you're going to maybe hit 595, but the most you've had was 500. And now you're going to hit 595. For some people, feeling that heaviness would be too mental. They'd be strong enough to do it, but they've given up mentally. Like I said, with all the mental stuff that I've done with the steel bending and all that other stuff and the sports psychology, I'm dumb enough. I don't care what it feels like. I'm going for it. So the feel doesn't mean anything to me. Sometimes when it feels the worst, that's when you hit your best lift. So that works for me to keep it light, because I know when it does feel extremely heavy, it's not going to phase me at all. That may not work for everybody, but that's what I do. And like a lot of times, I would say almost always, I deadlift without straps. I don't wear a belt. I do all these things to keep weight off the bar in training, because I think it's safer, number one, because again, less weight. You could argue the belt is safer, but I would argue it's not safer, because if you put the belt on, you're going to put more plates on. You're going to take the belt to its limit too. Right? Who's going to do the same weight with the belt and without? Nobody's going to do that.
That's true.
They're going to put the belt on and go, well, that was easy. Let's throw another. So you're going to max out the belt too. So it wasn't any safer. Now, it would be safer if you lifted the same weight with the belt, sure. But nobody's going to do that. And I do that with a lot of stuff. That's one reason we got into the box squats, because probably now they're not, but in the beginning, they were harder than squats for me. And I was like, oh, this is another way I can get solid work in with less weight. Now it's about the same, because I've been doing nothing but box squats for 4 years. but in the beginning, there was definitely a disparity.
So that concept of self-limiting exercises, or way of limiting yourself without necessarily just having it lighter by itself, still having the same. So you're sticking to the same intensity without having the same
correct
weight.
Yeah, literally just limiting the weight. The intensity would be the same. Like if it's a max effort day, it's still a max effort day. It's just without assistance or whatever you want to call it. And that's not, like I said, we do shirted bench. We were doing shirted bench like once a month. So it's not to say that I never do that. I'd say I put a belt on once a month. We were putting a shirt on once a month. And if the workout, if it was necessary, I would put more on. But it gives me a buffer zone too, because let's say I get the flu. Well, my training partners are coming over at 6:30. I'm lifting with the flu. Like that's just how it works. So again, that's mental too, though. Usually the flu, I can lift as much. It just sucks. But let's say I had something in it made me weaker for some reason. Well, I can just throw a belt on. Now I can do the same workout, get the same out of it. I just had to and I don't take the mental hit of, well, I couldn't do that. I just put a belt on, I did it. You know, it gives me a buffer zone. Or if I feel just bad or didn't sleep or something, I can say, well, today I'll just put a belt on and I'll do what I'm supposed to do. And I can't have a bad lift. You know what I mean? It's almost impossible, because I have somewhere I can go to make sure that I get it done.
And it helps when you're not concerned about just hitting a number. There's no egoistic person of that concept of just hitting a number.
When I first started training with Eli, the first year and a half, he picked all the weights. And I have a crazy assortment of plates. So when they're on the bar, you can't tell what's on the bar. I don't know. I don't even know what half my bars weigh. I just say if they're at least 45, it's 45. If it's under 45, it's 0. That's just how we do it. And for that first year and a half, I didn't know what I was lifting. I just knew we added 10 pounds every time. I didn't know what it was. Does it matter? As long as it's more, does it matter? I don't think it does.
No, that helps. Training with Clint, he would load all my deadlifts for me always. I'd never know what I'm PRing. He'd tell me what I hit after I hit it.
Yeah.
So, and I've PR'd every single time like that without fail.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you don't have, and it's like, well, I know I did it last time. It's only 10 more pounds. I guess, I'll just do it. And then I see him do it, and it's that mental thing. Well, he did it. I can do it. And I'm not going to let him beat me. Right.
And then you at least have to do 10 reps now, just to really make certain.
So I'm big on that. I try to self-limit everything, and not always. Like I said, sometimes we'll throw a shirt on, and I had one of those F8 Scorpions. I bitched in that a couple times. That thing is crazy. So sometimes we do get pretty wild, but in general, I try to be self-limiting. And that's even in like arm wrestling practice. I'm not going 100% in practice. Like I'm not going to risk getting hurt. When I Moss wrestle, I never go 100% in practice. It's too, I'm going to say it's too risky. I don't think Moss wrestling is dangerous. We can get in that debate if we want to, but I think it is risky. It's too risky in training to go 100%. You should be trying to build yourself up and worrying about staying in safe positions instead of trying to win. And if you do that enough, when you are trying to win later, you're safer about it.
So how do you approach the max effort lifts or the heavier lifts in training? Because you can just be chill and do a single, right? Or realize this needs to be up a notch because that kind of sucked. And then you have to pull it up. And then there's another notch where you just go ape shit, which probably doesn't need to be, needs to be very infrequent, but there's still different levels.
Like I said, when we're doing so, like let's say we're doing max effort, I'm probably limiting it without a belt or something along those lines. But then we add our 10 pounds every repeat. Like I said, when we get close, like if I do a session and I think, man, next time if I had 10 pounds, this ain't happening. We change the exercise. I don't fail in training. I don't ever want to know what failing is like. When I go out there at a competition, I want to be like, well, I haven't missed a rep in 4 years. I don't care what this thing weighs. I'm getting it. Now, whether or not I might miss it, but mentally going in, I'm thinking, well, I don't even know what missing a lift feels like.
Yeah.
And that's just how I approach it. I think the only lift that I have missed in the last 4 years was a couple bench presses.
So you don't have any AMRAP type things in your training at all?
We cut it off.
Okay.
One of our squat days and one of our bench days is, I call them lightning rounds. It's kind of a cluster. I don't know what you guys call them, but you'll do as many reps as you can, 30-second break, as many reps as you can, 30-second break. Then you do 3 sets. I never take any of those to absolute failure. None of them. I stop if I think I can get one more rep, and that's how I think it. I can get one more rep, I'll do one more. If I think I might get one more rep, that's a no. Right? Maybe on the very last set of the 3, I might go for it. And that's why I say on the bench press, I have missed a couple, but on the squat, I don't take it that far.
All right.